Is it possible, and is it right, that McDonald's could be held lawfully responsible for its food being too hot? But I'm not just going to tell you one, I'm going to tell you two stories about just this issue, and one of which many people get wrong. And this one is actually quite an old story that people have got wrong, more and more so over the years. So let's start in reverse order and in chronological order with the oldest story that people get wrong first. This is the story about somebody who went through a McDonald's drive-thru, bought a cup of coffee, got burnt by the coffee, and then sued McDonald's for millions of dollars. Now, what a lot of people get wrong about this story is that they believe that she put the hot cup of coffee in between her legs and then drove away, and then got burnt by the coffee, and then opportunistically sued McDonald's for many millions of pounds. But those facts are not quite accurate. What really happened was that she was in a parked car, and yes, the coffee was hot, and yes, it was between her legs. But it wasn't just the fact that it was hot, it was unbelievably and unreasonably hot. In fact, it was near boiling point at around 190 degrees Fahrenheit, or just under 100 degrees Celsius. The coffee did spill and caused third-degree burns all over her legs and around her groin. It almost killed her with the extensive injuries that she suffered. It took extensive surgeries, which were expensive surgeries, to treat, and initially she only wanted McDonald's to cover her medical expenses. Being a 79-year-old lady, she didn't want to sue McDonald's for millions of dollars, she just wanted them to cover the medical expenses, but instead they offered her $800, which even in 1992 would have been a lot of money, but nothing like the $20,000 that it actually cost her. Now, despite McDonald's having received around 700 reports of other people burning themselves with the coffee being unreasonably hot, McDonald's did admit that its coffee was a hazard at such high temperatures, but continued the practice, which was enforced by McDonald's policy, of heating up the coffee to near boiling point. But when McDonald's refused to pay out for her medical expenses, she then took the case to court, filing the lawsuit in 1994. After hearing the evidence, the jury concluded that McDonald's handling of its coffee was so irresponsible that she should get very much more than the $20,000, suggesting in fact that she should get almost $2.9 million to send McDonald's a message as to how unreasonably hot the coffee was. But instead, she settled for just less than $600,000, and McDonald's then began to change how it heats up its coffee to prevent further injuries. But the second story I'm going to tell you in this video is very much more recent. In fact, just from 2 days ago, on the 19th of July, where a jury deliberated for 2 hours, again to find that food this time was unreasonably and dangerously hot, this time referring to hot nuggets in a Happy Meal. And I have to admit that both of these decisions are very likely to split public opinion, so let me know in the comments what you think about either or both of these cases. According to the news reports, going through the drive-thru, a young girl was handed a Happy Meal to the rear seat of the car, but when a nugget got stuck on her car seat, it caused second-degree burns on her leg and permanent scarring. I have seen photographs of this, which are quite horrendous, so horrendous in fact that I'm not going to show on this channel because I don't want this video to get flagged. But this quite obviously caused her mental anguish for several years, which has now come to this conclusion. She was awarded $800,000 for the injuries and mental anguish that she suffered as a result of these burns. The family had originally sought $15 million in damages, but was awarded $800,000 in damages, which the attorneys for them called fair and just. And whilst McDonald's was found not to have been negligent for causing the burns, which I'll explain in a moment, but the jury did find that both McDonald's and Upchurch had failed to put warnings on the chicken nuggets that they were hot, which led to the injuries. The owner of Upchurch Foods did provide a statement to NBC to say that they are deeply disappointed with the verdict because the facts show that their restaurant did indeed follow the protocols when cooking and serving the Happy Meal, which is, of course, the reason that I think this decision is going to polarize opinion somewhat, because many people are going to think that you shouldn't be sitting in a car eating the food that you ought to know is hot. But at the same time, if it is so hot that it can cause such severe injuries, the argument is that it should have a warning on it. So as I said, let me know what you think in the comments, because as I say, I think this will be a polarizing opinion. Just a brief point on the negligence aspect. Negligence is a two-part test, very broadly speaking. First of all, on the assumption that there is a duty of care, which is not a very difficult burden to show, that duty of care has been breached somewhat. So you have a duty of care to take care of somebody, you've breached that duty, but the second part of that test is that the breach caused any injury that follows. And if there's a break in the chain of that causation, then you cannot successfully prove negligence. This is a fairly universal legal test, so even if there is a breach of legal duty of care, it may not necessarily have caused the injuries, or there may be some intervening step or fact that prevents such negligence from having caused that injury. Now, whilst I haven't seen all of the papers in this case, I can only assume that part of the argument was that the intervening steps was the mother passing the food to the child in the rear of the seat and not taking additional steps to eat it somewhere safe on a table. And thus, even if duty of care was breached, that is likely a break in the chain of causation, thus breaking up this causation of the injuries from what might have been negligence. So let me know in the comments, did you know the full story about the coffee lawsuit from 1994? And what do you think of this one with the $800,000 award for what is actually a relatively serious injury caused by very hot chicken nuggets? Should either McDonald's or the franchise owner be liable for these injuries, or do you instead, to put it quite bluntly and with all due respect, blame the mother for allowing the child to eat what is obviously hot food in the car instead of going down to sit at a table somewhere? Let me know what you think in the comments. Make sure you like the video and subscribe as always. And as always, thank you for watching.